Tom Trento back with Barry Shaw. You can find Barry right here, The View from Israel, on his Facebook page. Israel Institute for Strategic Studies. That's his organization. Find him here. Go there every day. You'll get the latest information that's going on in the Middle East. That's where we go, and we're glad we got him here. And I got a question for you, Barry.
Yep.
President Biden here in the United States, he's been serving in the federal government in the U.S. I think he's on year 137, something like that. And from the beginning, back 100 years ago, when he was with Abraham Lincoln, he said, I support Israel. I have their back. I will stand firmly with Israel. Barry Shaw, enlighten us on that claim, please.
You're right, Tom. He always, when he comes over here to Jerusalem, meets our leaders, you'll hear him say he's got our backs. Unfortunately, that's where we found the knife several times. I just want to start with this. Tom, you remember a few years ago before COVID, you invited me to come to your guys' meeting. You came over with a security group in a Tel Aviv hotel. You asked me to speak to them about how much aid and what Israel gives to the United States in return for our $3 billion, which is petty compared with what the United States give a lot of other countries. And I think your group was suitably impressed by the intelligence.
Not only were we suitably impressed, we took your information and integrated it into our, and we almost need to do a whole segment on that, into our work. And stating it shortly for our audience, the $3 billion, Barry laid out every single dollar, and virtually all of it comes back to the U.S. And plus, what the U.S. gets for it is 10 times what the value of the money is. That's the short statement of it. It was very eye-opening, Barry.
Okay, but that's an eye-opener to a meeting that Joe Biden had in 1984 between him and our Prime Minister at the time, Menachem Begin, of all people, who had come to the United States, had a wonderful meeting with President Reagan at that time, and then went to the Senate to meet at their Foreign Affairs Committee. And Senator Biden then was starting to threaten Begin about cutting U.S. aid because of Jews living in Judea and Samaria. And even the New York Times described that meeting as highly emotional. In fact, Begin was banging the table, and he was threatening Biden, the senator, said, you don't threaten us. We're not Jews with quaking knees, and don't tell us you're going to stop our aid, because he told Biden then what I told your group. We, Israel, give America far more in return for what we get from you than what we receive from you. And he was telling him, you don't have to be grateful, but don't threaten us, because we have, Begin told Biden, certain principles, and we will not bend on these principles, whether we receive your money or not. That was Biden then. Let's move forward. He threatened also Bibi, Benjamin Netanyahu, who was also supplying, not only allowing the Palestinians to build in Judea and Samaria, but when he was approving some Jewish building in places like Ma'ale Adumim and other places, he again threatened to hold up aid against us, against Bibi. But I think, in my opinion, the biggest stamp of all was when Vice President Biden was Obama's point man to Ukraine. And Obama, because he was tired of Bibi coming to America and saying that Obama's nuclear deal is a bad deal, he wanted to stab Israel in the back in 2020 on his way out of the White House. And he got Biden to go after Ukraine, who was on the Security Council, and said, you make sure Ukraine votes against Israel in the United Nations Security Council, UN Security Council Resolution 2334, which virtually said Jews living in Jewish homes in Judea and Samaria is illegal Israeli occupation. And Biden played a role on that. So when he comes into Jerusalem and says he's got our back, this and the nuclear deal, the bad nuclear deal, I'm sorry, we don't want Biden having our back, because that is where he puts the axe.
Wow. You know what? I remember 2334 and I heard something about the Ukraine, but it's crystallized now that he got the Ukrainians. And I heard the Ukrainians have a horrible voting record in the UN on Israeli issues, which is a whole nother story. So then we only got a couple of minutes left in this segment, Barry, but how do you reconcile the words of Biden, and the support is still coming, but with this confused kind of backhanded slap relationship? How do you make sense out of that?
I want to say, the way I make sense of this is that when we've had presidents in support of Israel in the past, whether it's been President Trump, perhaps one of the greatest presidents for Israel ever had, Ronald Reagan wasn't too bad either before Truman. They were the true presidents in support of Israel. And right now, unfortunately, the Biden administration has been the anti-Semitism, the anti-Israelism has seeped from people in the House, the squad. And it's making its place in other places, including in the White House, in the State Department, and other things. And again, in this nuclear deal, is Biden and the Democrats are desperate to make a deal, as I mentioned in another show some time ago, with Iran, whether it's a bad deal or not, because they want to tout it as a victory. And they're doing it really because he has no other achievements ahead of the midterm elections in November. And this is a time I plead even to the Jewish people who have, for the rest of their lives, for all their lives, have voted for the Democrats. I want you to recall something I said in your show several years ago when we were talking about a similar scenario in Britain under Jeremy Corbyn's lead in the British Labour Party, which became become so anti-Semitic in their anti-Israelism. And we're seeing this gathering speed in the Democratic Party. Gentlemen, ladies, this walk away. I know you, Tom, you know an organization down there in Florida called JEXIT, who are also appealing to Jews to walk away from the Democrat Party. If you have any care at all for Israel in any sense, this is your sad moment to walk away, because you haven't left your party have left you. This is what I said about 8 years ago to British Jews who have voted Labour all their lives. And it wasn't until some people, not just Jewish members of parliament in Britain, but also non-Jewish members of parliament who have been Labour members for 30, 40 years, walked away because they couldn't carry the stench of anti-Semitism in the British Labour Party. The pot is approaching boiling point in the United States. I never believed it would leap the pond so strongly and so vehemently. This is your moment. November, walk away.
Walk away, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Barry Shaw. And you gave us breaking news. Joe Biden makes decisions based upon politics. Oh, my word. Next time, Barry, I want to hear about the Biden White House and the possible anti-Semitic people working with advising Joe Biden. Thank you, Barry Shaw. We'll be in touch.